Okay, so I just passed the 6-month milestone into my film photography journey, and I wanted to take a bit of time to share my first experiences and more specifically share a couple of tips that I picked up along the way. So if you're new to film photography and you want to try it out for yourself, stick around. If you're a seasoned veteran when it comes to analog and film photography, feel free to leave your insights and comments. Okay, so tip number 1, rent out a couple of camera and lens combos and see what works for you. Me personally, I rented out a Leica M6 as my first camera, shot a couple of rolls on that, and more recently I took some time to work with the Mamiya 645 system. Both of these systems are very distinct. They all have their own characteristics. The M, of course, is the rangefinder, 35mm. The Mamiya 645 system is, it allowed me to dip my toes into the medium format world. I also plan on using a couple of systems in the future as well. I have on my bucket list the Hasselblad 500 series, Pentax 6.7, Mamiya 7, a Rolleiflex. I just want to try out all these different ways of approaching photography, compare them when it comes to usability, portability, image quality, of course, and just see what works best and what fits my workflow and the type of photography that I like to do most. There's only one thing: I hope I will not like them all, because then I will definitely break the bank, to be honest. Okay, so tip number 2, a phone app light meter works perfectly fine. Why do I say that? A lot of the older systems, they don't have built-in light meters, but I want you guys not to be afraid of those systems and actually embrace it in a way, because if the cameras are purely mechanical, it also means that they are much easier to service. If you have a lot of electronic components, those things can fail, and oftentimes you just end up with a brick. Of course, you can go for other options. So you have these little external light meters that you can mount on your camera, which work perfectly fine, or you can go for the more expensive external light meters, which are top-notch. But if you're a beginner, and maybe even more than a beginner, I think the phone apps on iPhones, they work perfectly fine. Okay, tip number 3, when in doubt, now that you have your light meter, always overexpose.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?
It's basically the opposite of digital photography, where we try to protect the highlights and we can pull out the details in the shadows in post-processing. For film, it's a bit the opposite. You can easily overexpose. Film has a lot of latitude, a lot of dynamic range, but if you're in doubt, just overexpose with one stop, and I think you will be very pleased with the results. Okay, for tip number 4, I would say experiment with different film stocks. I think this is one of the most fun aspects of film photography, just the large variety of film stocks that exist. They all give this different look, they all have a bit of character, and it's very fun to experiment with that and see what works in what type of lighting situation, what works for portraits, what works for landscapes. It gives you a lot of creative freedom. I still have a roll of Cinestill 800T that I definitely want to take out during nighttime. So just a lot of ways to have specific missions using a film stock for a certain project or for a certain subject, and see what you can come up with. For tip number 5, this is something that I struggle with myself. I still need to train myself in and do this more consistently. Write down the metadata of your photo in a booklet or in an app. Why? It's basically what we take for granted in digital photography. A lot of the metadata helps you reconstruct an image. With film photography, you don't have the luxury of that, and you basically need to do that manually if you want to benefit from that. Why is that important? Especially when you're learning, when you're new to film photography, it can really help you reverse engineer a picture, see what went wrong, what went right, and try to copy that for future use. As a short list, things that I personally think that you really should write down when it comes to film photography is 1, of course, which film stock you are using. Number 2 is a description of your scene or of the subject, in order you can do the mapping with the scans afterwards. Of course, the aperture and the shutter speed that you used. Also, if you chose to over or underexpose, also something that you should mention. Another one that's quite cool is the point of focus. just to see if you are able to nail focus, especially shooting wide open on medium format. That can be quite tricky. So then yeah, some various notes on lighting conditions, potential impact on white balance. All these things can really help you improve with film photography. Number 6, look for a good local film lab. Of course, you can send in your rolls via mail-in, but if you're able to get to a local film lab, I think it's very much worth it. Why? It gives you a bit of comfort to know that you actually dropped your film rolls off and that they actually received it well, instead of relying on a postal service to do that for you. Another benefit, of course, is that you're able to talk to these people that have a lot of experience with developing film, and if you're not totally convinced or happy with the results that you're getting, they can certainly help you improve. And then last but not least, tip number 7, print your photos. It just in a way closes the loop. You have your developed film rolls, and taking them to an actual print is the cherry on top of the cake of the entire journey. And having your images on paper is just a very, very nice experience. One of the added benefits of choosing or having the opportunity to go to a local film lab is that oftentimes they will also provide you with printing options and a printing service. You can work together with them to get the best results out of your photography. Definitely print your photos. Okay, so these were my 7 tips for film photography so far. If you're still here, thanks for watching. I will leave a couple of useful links in the description below, like the film lab that I use here in Brussels, and a potential option for renting out cameras if you're from Belgium or the Netherlands. And then the only thing that I can say is, if you pick up a film camera, enjoy the process to the fullest, and if you have any results to share, feel free to reach out. See you in the next one.